County. I've been with the organization since its inception back in 1984. This all came about by an article in the Clay Dispatch Tribune, January 4, 1984, asking who wants to run a railroad. The railroad at the time was stored over in Penn Valley Park in the former police stables, and on Saturday, January 14th, approximately 40 people showed up to look at the deplorable condition of the former Swope Park train that ran at the zoo from 1953 to 1972. It was determined at a later time that we would look at it if we could find a place to work on it. We were fortunate enough that North Kansas City Land Development offered us a warehouse gratis. We asked the Kansas City Parks and Recreation to bring the equipment to the warehouse for further review. After review, it was determined that it was something that could be done. We held meetings at the community center located on Northeast Antioch to determine what we would do to go ahead. At that time, there was no funds available. The Kansas City Parks and Recreation had it almost cut in stone that the train was going to be installed at the Lakewood Greenway, also known as Penguin Park, on Vivian Road. However, there was much misinformation given even 40 years ago. There was 3 neighborhood associations that did not want the train. Penguin Park was popular back then. However, parking was limited. There was no restroom facilities. Parents would drop their kids off. They'd knock on people's doors wanting to use telephone and or facilities. It was determined then that we would ask the Kansas City Parks and Recreation for a list of the parks north of the river. There was 22 sites that were given. They were inspected, and in 1985, it was determined that Line Creek Park would be the most suitable spot for the railroad. Originally, when the train was going over to the Lakeway Greenway, the railroad was going to be called Lakewood Miniature Railway. However, since we moved and it was decided that Line Creek Park would become its new home, the Kansas City Northern Miniature Railroad then became its official name, and it was incorporated as such as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. That was in 1985. It wasn't until the spring of 1989 when we received $50,000 in tax money from the city to build the railroad. $2,000 of that was used for the survey. The city staked it out, and the remaining money was used to build the existing building. The building was started in May of 1990 and was finished later on that spring. Track laying began, and our first trains operated in July of 1992. If you've never ridden the railroad, there is a 110-foot tunnel at the north end, which is 2 10,000-gallon underground storage tanks. The face stone came from the old Purcell High School. We have a 76-foot bridge, the steel which came from the Armco steel plant, which was part of an overhead crane system. Our crossing signals when you come into the parking lot came from the Kansas City Terminal Railroad and were installed by the Kansas City Terminal Signal Department. And I usually get a big laugh on this one. Our flagpole came from McDonald's. We currently have 3 trains at the Kansas City Northern Miniature Railroad. As said earlier, We have the original Swope Park train that ran out to Kansas City Zoo from 53 to 72. The second train was one of two given to the city of Pittsburgh, PA by the Mellon banking family and ran at the Pittsburgh Zoo. Its sister is out on the West Coast somewhere, hoping to be restored. And the third train came originally from the Ross Park Zoo in Binghamton, New York. All three trains are 16-inch gauge, meaning there's 16 inches between the side of the rails. There is the second train, which is the 802, which is the Kansas City Northern train, was originally purchased from a organization in Manhattan, Kansas, and actually ran probably 1 week sooner than the former Kansas City Southern train. All the rail and all of the track was purchased, and the rail was originally installed at this location. In subsequent years, new rail was bought, and all the old rail was replaced with new rail at that time. Our grand opening was held on June 5th, 1993, as well as our Golden Spike ceremony. It was attended by Anita Gorman, who at that time was president of the Kansas City Parks and Recreation Department. I would like to invite you to come to Line Creek Park and ride the Kansas City Northern Miniature Railroad before the end of the operating season in October. I think it's a very enjoyable ride. It's for kids of all ages. Our youngest has been 2 days. Our oldest has been 94. So it's for kids of all ages. Thank you, and have a good day.